And today's webinar, Shared Space for Co-workers and for Community, is the second of a three-part series, Sharing SEontario Stories. It's brought to you by the Canadian Community Economic Development Network on behalf of the Rural Social Enterprise Collaborative, or Constellation, and the Liaison Project. And you can see the logos for our partners, and you can when I move forward, on the splash screen there. My name is Paul Chamberlain, and I'm with SEDNet-Ontario. I'll be facilitating our discussion and introducing our two feature storytellers. Their biographies are both on the SEDNet website promotion page where you registered. This series is part of a larger set of webinars funded through the Ontario Trillium Foundation to provide infrastructure that can facilitate social enterprise development in Ontario and to support rural social enterprise. In past sessions on inspiring innovation, which is the report of Ontario's first comprehensive social enterprise survey, and another on SEontario.org, which is the provincial showcase and online community of social enterprise. We've had an excellent series on developing rural social enterprises, and we are now in the middle of a series of French webinars that will be ending on November 26th, the presentation of ASOntario.org, which is a French version of this site we launched at that time. There are links to the report and to the previous webinars on the SEontario resources section, as well as on the SEDNet Ontario site. All of this Sharing SE Stories series is for us to learn a little bit more together about what it takes to really develop successful social enterprises in Ontario by taking an in-depth look at several different models of social enterprise. And last week we heard the inspiring stories of two organizations that have successfully grown the impact of their work by developing multiple enterprises. That was Group Convex and Teamworks. And that webinar has been posted already, so you can access that online. Today we're going to learn about two very different models of shared space, Common Roof and The Forge. I'll be introducing each presenter and ask them a few questions about their organization, and then we'll turn it open to all of you so that we can have a discussion. So without further ado, I'll introduce Glenn Newby. So Glenn has spent 40 years working in the children's mental health in Ontario, and 25 of those at the executive level. He is a longtime board member and now board co-chair of the Nonprofit Centers Network based in Denver, Colorado. It supports the development of shared facilities and integrated services across both the U.S. and Canada. He is an active member of the Social Enterprise Alliance based in the U.S. He is also owner and operator of SE Global Tours, SE Global Social Tourism. And in addition to all of that, Glenn is the CEO of New Path Youth and Family Services, and that oversees Common Roof, and that is why he's with us today. So Glenn, if you can begin by just telling us a little bit about Common Roof and how it works, that would be wonderful.
Thank you, Paul, and thank you so much for inviting me to share my story with folks. It's great to have people here. The Common Roof, when people think of that, they often think of just a building somewhere, and in fact we are a building. We have two facilities. But before I describe the actual facility, we are really much more than just a building. The projects that we run in Barrie and Orillia, both in Ontario, are facilities that we believe are truly sustainable, affordable, and extremely visible, that work very hard, intentionally work hard to enhance the mission of our partner organizations, to efficiently use space, both for administrative and program space, by sharing and doing cross-sector collaborations, and certainly sharing some of the infrastructure as well. So we're really much more than just a building. We developed a very broad vision statement in the communities that we're in and that we hope to go in to really build a healthy, growing community for people, for children, families, and adults today and tomorrow. Our mission is we believe that we are a community-based social enterprise that provides sustainable and professional workspace for the nonprofit sector in Ontario. And our impact is, this is the most critical one, it's really to maximize the efficiency and effectiveness of nonprofit organizations, and in that context to also increase funds for human service programs within various communities. What I'm showing here are just a couple pictures. This was our opening day in Barrie, Ontario. And this particular facility is a 20,000 square foot facility. It opened in 2006. We're very fortunate. We sit on 4.5 acres within the city of Barrie. It's quite unique in terms of the space that we have available. We have plans on this property for a second 40,000 square foot phase 2 common roof. And at this point, we have 5 partner tenants that enjoy a 10-year fixed rate lease. Our other facility, it's a little bit newer. This opened in the summer of 2011, and it is in Orillia, Ontario. That's about half an hour north of Barrie, for those of you that are not familiar. And this is a slightly larger building. It's 36,000 square feet. It sits on a 12,000 square foot footprint, and it's 3 stories. This also is on about 4 acres of land as well in downtown Orillia, again, quite unique. This has a much broader and diverse range of tenants than our Barrie program, and I'll describe that a little bit later. And this facility, we were very fortunate, was also partially funded by federal and provincial grants, and I'll talk about some of the financing a little bit later. I should mention in Orillia, we also have an expansion plan there too, which will hopefully include a community kitchen, some community laundry facilities, facilities for Special Olympics, which is severely lacking up in central Ontario, and we're hoping for a food bank in there as well. Structurally, how we've managed this, New Path Foundation is a registered charitable organization. It used to be a community foundation, but we've changed that over the last 2 years into a charitable organization that can actually support other charities in the community. Under New Path Foundation, we have a social enterprise arm, and that's where the common roof is located, under that particular arm. Under that arm as well, we have New Path Ventures, which is earned income programs, and I'll give you just a very 2-second example of that. For our common roof facilities, we have a maintenance and cleaning company that employs disadvantaged folks from the community and trains them to clean offices, vacuum, washrooms, all of those kinds of things using environmentally friendly products, and we pay them, and we have an income that's generated from that for our common roof facilities. That company will also go out into the community and do private contracts in the community. At this point, just in terms of where we are right now, in Barrie we have 5 major partners. These represent essentially government-funded organizations that have their head office here in the Barrie Common Roof. The Orillia Common Roof, it's many more tenants, but they're at a much different level. Some of those are sub-offices of organizations in Barrie, but many are smaller organizations based out of Orillia that include multiple sources of funding from Catholic Charities, United Way funded, some are government funded. We have one there, fourth in the bottom, that is Think Feet. It is a for-profit organization with very little space. They only have about maybe 500 square feet. That's the only anomaly to our project in terms of not-for-profits. That is a for-profit, but they do some charitable work in the community as well. And coming very soon, we have, we're very pleased that the Simcoe County Children's Aid Society will be coming, as well as some pediatric services as well. So both of those buildings at this point are full. In terms of, just briefly, I wanted to touch on some of the common roof concepts that we've got some research evidence for now. Is strength through co-location. All the organizations are much stronger when we live and work together. It's unique as a registered nonprofit, as the owner and landlord. Our philosophy is client first at all times. So for an organization to come in here, they must agree with a child and family-centered approach. So for example, all meeting rooms and my office as president and CEO, they're all located on the interior of the building. All the exterior offices with windows and light and all of that sort of thing are for clients, for treatment rooms and program rooms and individual therapy rooms. The whole model is built on sustainability well into the future, and I'll touch that a little bit later on the financial plan. We truly believe in quality and maximum shared office and program space. The clients, the humans that we work with, deserve the best possible resources and space available for their programs. We're accessible, we're on bus routes, we're community driven. We work very closely with the community when we build these projects, and we're very much community based. In intentionality of integration and collaboration, we expect our partners and tenants to seriously consider enhanced collaboration and integration of back-off services. And finally, the concept, both of our facilities and our future ones will operate as a social enterprise. And by that, my concept of a social enterprise is we generate a profit, a surplus. We do good with that work that we do in terms of providing homes for other charities, and we're environmentally friendly as we do that. So that's kind of where we're at right now.
That's great, Glenn, and it's wonderful to get such a sense of the diverse tenants as well as the integration in your shared tenancy model there, and really get a sense of the scope of Common Roof today. I'm sure that getting there where you are currently didn't happen overnight, and maybe tell us a little bit about the story of how you got to where you are today.
I'd be happy to. Getting there is a challenge. There's no question about it. I would go back to about 2003 and 2004. There were 2 or 3 organizations that were actually tenants in another facility downtown Barrie. That facility was owned by a for-profit Ontario nonprofit corporation based out of Toronto. And over the year and a half that we were there, we experienced absolutely no service whatsoever in terms of maintenance at the facility. We had an elevator that would be broken for a month at a time. We had very poor cleaning services, limited snow plowing services, and the building was really in just a terrible condition. That was the initial impetus. Those 3 agencies said that, why are we having someone do this to us? Why don't we do it to ourselves? So that was the initial driver of trying to develop a better facility for the clients, for the customers. We had children and youth. We had folks that were disabled that needed elevators. So it was really a customer service focus that drove this initially. Very much after that, at that time in the province, some of the funding was very limited for transfer payment agencies funded by the government. So there was a real challenge with financial resources and how do we bring our dollars together to do a better job. We wanted client accessibility. That was a clear requirement. And also one of the biggest factors in Simcoe County was a high degree of collaboration amongst service providers. It's been like that for many years. I've been here for about 25 years, and it's clearly a very collaborative community. So those were the initial drivers. It took a fair bit of work to put this together, and the first really ingredient that I can comment on is collective impact. We had a true recognition that the sum of the parts is much greater than the whole. So if we put all of our resources together, we would have a major impact on enhanced services for clients. There was also a clear leadership team that was developed. There were about 4 of us that really believed in doing something different and trying to become more sustainable and less reliant on government funding. And then the other one there is the 4 T's that I think are significant ingredients and which we spent a lot of time developing. And one is trust amongst the organizations that wanted to come together. The other was taking a lot of time to put that together. The third one was critical. It was turf. We had to begin to think about tearing up some of our own turf. That's the old way of doing business. The new way of doing business is sharing your turf with others for collective impact. And the 4th T was transparency. We had to be totally transparent with our staff, with our agencies, with our funders, with our real estate folks, all of that sort of thing. So that was the Barrie project. The Orillia project, it was much easier because it was really based on the success that we had in Barrie. And in fact, we lucked out with that success because the federal and provincial infrastructure grants became available. So we applied. So we actually got a $2.7 million grant to help build the Orillia project. But it was really based on Barrie's success. So it does take an awful lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of commitment, and a lot of working with your community partners as well to really make that happen.
And it's really great to see that you have been able to actually replicate Common Roof yourself, and I think that's definitely encouraging to others who might be looking at a similar kind of shared tenancy model. And of course, the fact that you wanted to replicate it, as you've said already, you've mentioned some of the benefits and a couple of the challenges, but maybe you can just finish by highlighting both a few more of the benefits of this kind of model and also some of the challenges that you've faced.
Yes, we've really categorized the benefits into 4 major areas. The first benefit is really client-based, and it's providing an accessible location. We have exceptional reception services. It is a one-stop access because of the wide range of services we have here. We could see a family for a mental health issue that they're experiencing, and very clearly the father or the mother might have an addictions issue. We can walk that parent down the hall and make introductions to an addictions counselor right there and right then. So that kind of one-stop shop is a wonderful concept that works really well, as well as a variety of meeting and program space for clients in terms of one-way interview rooms, treatment rooms, physio rooms, all of those kinds of things. Clearly another benefit is for the staff and volunteers. This is phenomenal that we're just beginning to research and track, where staff from different professions and volunteers actually connect with each other at the Common Roof in the lunchroom, in the shared boardroom. We'll have opportunities where you'll see a child psychiatrist sitting down having lunch with a child and youth worker. And this is so rare. And then an OT professional might join in for lunch, and they get to know each other and their professions. Clearly, the benefits for the community are significant. The best example there is in Orillia, where we built our Common Roof in an area of Orillia that was somewhat impoverished. It was not very attractive. It just wasn't the nicest part of town. We put up that beautiful 36,000 square foot building, and immediately the entire neighborhood had a shift. We had a wonderful bakery that came in next door. The staff loved that, of course. But we also had like a giant tiger that went in right across from in the plaza. They repaved the roads. It really was a catalyst to developing that community. And finally, the most significant benefits that we have is for the partner and tenants. Partners do pay a small fee to get into the building. Tenants do not do that, but partners have some significant benefits. They enjoy a long-term 10-year fixed-rate lease. They have complete shared services menu options in terms of IT, HR, finance, all of those kinds of things. We do charge a building fund of $1 per square foot on top of market value. So we don't reduce our rents, but what we do for partners, after the mortgages and financial commitments are paid off, each partner gets a grant back from New Path Foundation, and it's unrestricted. So this is a grant of approximately about 60% of the rent that they pay in that 1 year, and that comes back to them every year as long as they're in that building. The other benefit, of course, is that our space at 60% is shared space, which is the highest in Canada and, the best to my knowledge, one of the highest in the U.S. And this means that an agency that that is currently renting 1,000 square feet somewhere can come into a common roof facility and only rent 400 square feet dedicated space. The other 60% is all shared, so it's prorated in terms of their actual rent costs. And this final slide just gives you a sense of the actual rent payments. That the top line represents in Simcoe County here what the average rent is year to year going over the next 20 years. And the bottom line shows what the common roof rent is for our nonprofit partners. And there's little bumps in there that reflect a number of different things. But the important thing is those two lines are getting further in part. And in fact, the bottom line is almost flat-lined over 20 years. So it really does represent a benefit of long-term sustainability for nonprofits. Rent is usually the second highest cost of nonprofit agencies after staffing. And we've tried to minimize that rent cost as much as possible.
Thanks, Lynn. You've really packed a lot into a short presentation, and we'll look forward to hearing more from you. I'm sure there will be questions during our discussion time.
Okay.
So now we'll turn to our second presenter, and it's a pleasure for me to introduce Rebecca Danard. Rebecca is passionate about creativity, innovation, and networking. She has degrees in both science and music, including a PhD in clarinet performance, so definitely a Renaissance woman. She has worked on aquatic ecology projects in the Great Lakes, Rideau Canal, and Upper Thames River, and has performed in music festivals in Canada, the USA, and Europe. Both as a musician and as an ecologist, Rebecca has always been entrepreneurial and initiating creative and cross-disciplinary collaborations. And so now, as Executive Director of ReThink Green and of The Forge, she's bringing together business community groups, nonprofits, and government agencies, all working towards a greener Greater Sudbury. So welcome, Rebecca, and we look forward to hearing how your life themes have come together in your work at The Forge.
Thanks very much, Paul. It's really great to be here and a pleasure to speak to all of you.
And maybe you can begin by telling us just a little bit about this very new and exciting shared working space.
Yes. There we go. Okay, so this is The Forge. The Forge is a co-working space in Greater Sudbury, and it opened in April of 2014, so we've been open for less than a year. And it is run as a social enterprise to support the activities of ReThink Green. So I think I'll start by telling you just a little bit about ReThink Green so you get the idea of what the sort of mission is. Forward. Oh, sorry, sliding. There we go. Is that my first one? Yes. Okay. Sorry, just having some slide issues. Okay. So ReThink Green's vision is for a Greater Sudbury that is a community that's continuously striving towards sustainability, in which the well-being of the global and local environment, the health and happiness of residents, and the prosperous economy are all properly balanced and in harmony. So there's sort of three parts to the ReThink Green mission: environment and social programs, as well as business. So it's been too often presented that business and the environment is a dichotomy. You can have one and not the other, or improving one is going to compromise the other. And we at ReThink Green really thinks that that's not, it's a false dichotomy. It is possible to have something that's good for business and good for the environment. Okay, so we are, at ReThink Green, we are a networking organization. So we connect the other like-minded groups in Greater Sudbury, including community groups, other nonprofits, environmental businesses, and government organizations. And our mandate is to help our members to get their message across to the public, through capacity building, sharing resources, a lot of the same things that Glenn was talking about, the benefits of sharing. So some of the things we do, we run workshops for our members. We run an environmental resource center which has all sorts of references for people. We initiate collaborations between various groups, and our big public-facing event is we run the Greater Sudbury Earth Day Festival, and have so for, this will be our 10th year anniversary of doing that festival. So that's ReThink Green, and the Forge was designed to support all of those activities. So this is what we have, some of the things we have to offer at the Forge. It's primarily designed as a shared co-working space. So we have permanent desks or hot desk packages in this common area. So a permanent desk obviously is your stuff is there all the time. It's your desk. You can work on it whenever you come in. A hot desk is a more flexible package in that you can come in at any time and work at any workstation that happens to be available. We also offer private offices, and these are for some of our members who have more need of a private space. So this is Diane, who works at the ADHD Counseling Center, and she's obviously seeing clients. She has confidential medical records. She needs somewhere private to meet with her people. And we also offer meeting space. So this is the green room, and this is a place where businesses or nonprofits can hold meetings. It's something that's very useful for some of our clients. Sometimes they work from home, but if they need to meet with a client, they need somewhere more professional to do that than their living room. Okay, and this is, I think, this is the services, some of the services we offer at the Forge. So there's internet, telephone, teleconferencing. We have an awesome printer, and there's storage, common areas, full kitchenette, and we also get, this is a really nice perk, fair trade organic coffee from the Old Rock Cafe, and it's always on tap, so people enjoy coming in for a coffee. And these are our current members. So we've got a wide variety of people. I'm just going to highlight a few. So the ADHD Learning Center, I mentioned that one before. Canada World Youth, which is a program that coordinates opportunities for Canadian youth and international youth. Dave Copeland Life Insurance, he's a life insurance broker. And Digital Gold Foundries is a Bitcoin currency business. Flat River Consulting, they're an environmental restoration consulting firm. Planet Earth Organic Landscaping does organic landscaping for businesses and private homes. Rowan Tree Farms is a local organic farm, and Wild Women Expeditions, they run eco-tourism and empowerment sessions for women. So those are our current members. When the Forge was started, we sort of had two targets of where we wanted to go with our members. Our first thought was for our nonprofits, and the second was environmental businesses. And we are working towards that being more of our clientele. But since we're so new, we kind of just wanted to get people into the space and get it going with people. So we're reaching out to nonprofits through the ReThink Green community. The nonprofits that are ReThink Green members are actually one of them that's not listed yet is Eat Local Sudbury is really working on having some offices with us. We're just in the process of figuring that out. And the other thing is environmental businesses. So we've developed a series of workshops that we deliver at the Learning Initiative and the Regional Business Center. And both of these places run entrepreneurship programs. And we've developed some sustainability training that we deliver to these programs, and then it gives them an opportunity to come into the Forge and sort of get to know it. So we spread the word in the community that way. So that's sort of what the Forge does.
Perfect. And it really is a beautiful new space that really does seem to be bringing people together in the community. I know that you're still at the early stages, but I'm sure there's a story behind getting you even to the point that you are at the moment, and maybe you can tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, sure. So this was one of the original services that ReThink Green offered for the nonprofits and community groups that make up most of our members, is a place to meet and work. Many of these groups are run entirely by volunteers, so they don't have a place to get together to do what they need to do. So this is a picture of our first environmental resource center. As you can see, it's a good space, but it's kind of small, and it's got a lot of things going on in there. So because these organizations are run, not quite yet, going back, run entirely by volunteers, they're mostly used in the evenings and weekends and lunch hours, because that's when volunteers have time to do their volunteer work. So the space was sitting empty for most of the business hours. So we saw an opportunity to actually use our space during business hours. But in order to attract businesses, it needed to be a little bigger and more professional looking than the original Environmental Resource Center. We also had recognized a need for ReThink Green. We've been mostly funded through project grants from the Trillium Foundation, which has been very, very excellent for us. But the tricky thing with project grants, as I'm sure many of you know, is that it's just difficult to justify ongoing costs as part of a new project. So in order to maintain the level of service that we've been providing for our ReThink Green members, we needed to really get some self-generated income in order to cover some of our basic operational costs. So the Forge was the project that was come up with to try and do that. So we got some funding. Moving on to the next. There we go. So in terms of startup costs, we got some money from the Trillium Foundation, also from FedNor. If you're not from the North, FedNor is the federal government's funding program for Northern Ontario. And from the Greater Sudbury Development Corporation, also contributed some money. And we also got interns. We like having interns because it's a way to get staffing that doesn't cost us a fortune, through the Northern Ontario Fund Corporation and from the Ontario Jobs Creation Program, Employment Ontario. So now we've got some money and some people to do some work. So it was time to go to work. So this is our building. It's located in downtown Sudbury, and we had a very generous landlord who has offered to put 70% of our renovation costs go towards our future rent credits, which is amazing. So if we spend $1,000 on renovations, we get $750 worth of rent credits to put towards future rent. So he's been really, really amazingly supportive, and we really value his contribution. Because the building was in a bit of rough shape to start with. There were holes in the walls and really old fixtures and chipped paint and a lot of accumulated dust and debris. I think this picture is after about 3 months of work of cleaning it out. So it took a lot to get it into its current beautiful state. And what we wanted to do, because we're an ecologically minded place, we wanted to make sure that we were doing our renovations as greenly as possible. So there's kind of some interesting stories about how we did that. So our boardroom floor, the green room, is made of Torlys cork, which is really neat. It's harvested from the cork trees, and it does not kill the tree, and they can go back and harvest the same tree every 9 years. And it's coated with a nice ceramic finish so that it looks and feels pretty much exactly like hardwood. It's really quite beautiful, and we didn't kill any trees to make it happen. The other neat thing is Interface Carpet Tile, and Interface is a really cool environmental company. The carpet is made from 75% recycled material, and when it's worn out, the company will pay to have it shipped back to them so they can recycle it. And something that's really nice about carpet tile as opposed to a roll of carpet is that it's much easier to fit into your space. We're actually located on the 3rd floor of an older building, and trying to get a carpet roll up the stairs is not nearly as fun as just carrying boxes of tile. It's also really handy if anything ever gets damaged on the carpet. You can just replace the one tile with another one. You don't have to replace the whole carpet if something happens to one tile. And interface has another thing where they purchase carbon offsets to cover the entire life cycle of the carpet, including the shipping and installation, removal, and returning for recycle. So it's actually pretty much a no-impact carpet, which is, I think, was really neat. We also reached out to our community and tried to get donated items. So we actually collected our ceiling tiles and lights from a public school that was being renovated. And we also got donations of old desks that we put legs on, and we got some dividers that weren't being used by Science North. So we reclaimed a lot of our construction equipment. We also have nice cellular window shades. These are great for energy conservation. You can keep heat in or heat out in the summer and heat in the winter because they're nicely insulated. It reflects the light out when you want it to. They're really great. Okay, so that's the next thing. Back to you, Paul, I guess.
I was going to say it's wonderful to see your shared collective commitment to building green, and I'm sure that even as to get so far, you've faced certain challenges, but also perhaps beginning to see some benefits and impacts. So if you can tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, sure. So we really wanted to have a downtown building because we wanted to be accessible as possible by sustainable transportation. So we want to encourage people to take the bus, to bike, to walk, to work. The challenge of that is that we don't have any parking for our members. So that's kind of a downside to, and it's been a bit of a stumbling block occasionally for members who need parking, and we don't have parking. So that remains to be it remains a challenge. But we do like to encourage people to use the sustainable transport. Another problem is, as I mentioned, it's on the third floor of a building, so accessibility has been a problem for us. For example, one of our clients runs breastfeeding workshops, and it's not very nice that pregnant people have to walk up 3 flights of stairs to get to their class. So this is an ongoing challenge. One possible solution for us is that we're actually above. Our office is above the local store, Eat Local Sudbury, and they have been doing extremely well, and they are considering moving to a larger location. So if and when they move, we may consider adopting some of their space so we have some more ground floor access, because it is an ongoing problem. Another problem that we didn't know about to begin with was the need for shared versus public workspace. So you can see the bottom picture is a much more open concept, which was the original intention for the Forge. But we were finding that a lot of people would come in and they would ask if we had private offices, and when we said no, they're already full, they would just say, okay, sorry, I'm going away. So we tried to come up with some solutions to make some more private space. So what we did is just add some dividers to that area, which means that it's possible to have, one, a little more privacy, also possible to sort of personalize your workstation a little more. As you can see, that's my desk and setup. So I've got some of my own stuff and pictures and left my computer set up. So it's a way to have a more private space to work. The other kind of interesting thing we did is, as you see, I have moved my office into the Forge. So now we have the ReThink Green offices that used to be our own private offices. We're now having them available for members to rent. So we've increased our amount of privacy and private space. So some of the benefits to the Forge. Obviously, it's a green workplace to work. So we do our own. We recycle. We think about energy efficiency. We do our composting, as you can see here, in the office. So it's a good green workspace. We also are, as I also mentioned before, we do these sustainability in business workshops, and this is a way that we feel that to educate the greater business and entrepreneurial community about sustainability. So even if they don't end up coming to the Forge to set up, they have learned what they learn in these workshops, and they know about the Forge, and they can pass on these concepts of sustainability and knowledge about the Forge to their communities. The other really interesting thing is building connections between various groups. So, for example, Diane, who runs the ADHD Learning Center, and one of our businesses is a holistic herbal treatment business. So they've had some discussion and collaboration about herbal treatments for ADHD and dietary changes that can help with that condition. So there's Forge members and ReThink Green members who are talking to each other and making connections, and we hope that will continue to grow as we get more members and more established. The other really fun thing is we have the possibility of hosting new projects, and this is one run by The Natural Step, which is a national organization based in Ottawa, and they do entrepreneurial sustainability workshops. They're 2.5-day workshops, which is followed by a 4-month residency in a co-working space. And since we now have a co-working space, we are eligible to have these projects run in Sudbury. And they've actually applied for their Trillium grant this year was to run this impact program for the next 5 years in Sudbury, using the resources of the Forge to make this project happen. Sudbury and other places across Ontario, and I think maybe perhaps across Canada. But without the Forge, we would not have had the opportunity to really even be part of this new project. So we've been using it to really grow our community as well. So that's the Forge, and thanks for letting us tell you about it.
Well, and I'm sure we're going to hear a little bit more still. So there's a lot happening in a short time, and lots of connections out in the community beyond the actual building, which is great to hear about. So as we move now into the time where we can have some questions from all of you on the line, and we see that there are a few already, but I'm just going to kick off by I'd ask both Glenn and Rebecca maybe to come up with one piece of advice that they would give to somebody else that was wanting to set up a similar kind of shared space. So maybe, Glenn, you have your brief comment first of all.
Better take it off mute. Thank you. Probably the greatest recommendation I can give people is to be patient. From our facilities and our networking and collaboration takes a long time, and nothing happens overnight. And it's really critical to involve your key leadership team in every step of the process. So it's something you can't do by yourself. We've learned that it really is a collaborative with your key partners and key players, and it takes a lot of time. In our case, because we're dealing with various somewhat large nonprofit charities and transfer payment agencies, we have to work with their boards of directors to get the governance on board. So that would be sort of my big thing. Take the time to do it and involve governance folks in all decisions that you're doing. And I guess my other quick piece of advice is if you're going to construct or build more than you think you need, because very quickly once you're in it, everybody else wants to come, and that was our challenge. We didn't have enough room once we actually opened these facilities.
Great. One very practical piece of advice and one more process piece. That's great. And Rebecca, what about you? Any advice to offer?
I would say that remaining flexible and really listening to the community would be my advice. For example, we set out the Forge with sort of very strict packages, like this is what you get in this hot desk package, and this is what you get with this one, and this one keeps this many hours of boardroom time or whatnot. And what we found is that it's much easier if you're able and willing to work with somebody. Say, okay, well, I only want boardroom time. What can we do? What can you do for me? I want to get 3 desks in a room. How can we make that happen? And if you're willing to sort of work with people and be flexible about and listen to their needs and what they want, for example, that thing with more private office space, I think it's a good way to go to be able to be flexible while still maintaining true to your original intentions, but being able to be more flexible in what you can offer.
Great. That's a good principle for any community development and community economic development work that we're involved in, so that's great. Well, and I see there are a few questions already in the chat room. Paulette had asked, just wanting, I guess, a quick clarification about whether, and I think this came for Glenn originally, so clarifying whether members are, all members are non-profit organizations, and I think you had mentioned that it's not all of them were, but maybe Glenn, you can mention.
Yeah, generally in both our facilities, we're all nonprofits. Most of them are registered nonprofits. We have a couple other just nonprofits that are not registered. That Think Feet one in Orillia is the only for-profit. One has to be very careful with our particular mandate with CRA that we are not providing these services for-profits, and the only reason Think Feet is in there because it's such a small amount of space. It's below the radar of CRA. Plus, they do a fair bit of charitable work to the local hospital as well.
Right, great. And in your case, Rebecca, that's not that you could be for-profit or non-profit. Is that correct?
Yeah, for-profit or non-profit at the moment. Yeah, that's the business model. Is because the social enterprise aspect comes in that any revenue from the forge goes to support ReThink Green. So anybody who would like to provide us with revenue, we'll be happy to have them. I mean, obviously we're not going to sell space to big oil companies anytime soon, but so far they haven't been knocking on our doors, so I think we're okay.
Another quick clarification question, I guess, from Anna for Glenn. Anna was just asking where on your website, whether you have a description of the cleaning social enterprise that you run.
No, we don't. Not at this point. It's coming up very soon. We're trying to find a catchy business name for that social enterprise, and then once it's on and we're just putting some marketing pieces together before we actually sort of publicly market that cleaning service to the community. But it should be there, I would anticipate, within about 4 weeks.
Okay, so that's maybe something that Anna can watch out for on your website, or check in with you in a month or so. And from Megan, she was wondering how the organizations, and I guess this is particularly for ReThink Green and the Forge, although I know there was Glenn also made some reference to this, was wondering how organizations have dealt with with ergonomics on a budget. Knowing that often green can end up being more expensive. So do you want to start off with that one, Rebecca?
Sure. So with the ergonomics, by ergonomics you mean choosing green supplies.
Friendly, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I honestly, I mean, I am also quite new to the Forge. I started in August of this year, so I wasn't around when a lot of the budget decisions were being made. But I think that some decisions were made to go with a more expensive, for example, the two flooring options rather than the cheaper one, were offset by other green principles which actually save us money. For example, all of the furniture in the Forge was donated by Falconbridge, the mining company, and they were getting rid of their furniture. So just a matter of having connections in the community that will allow you to sort of stretch your budget in one direction by compensating in another. And a lot of the stuff was saved from the landfill. The ceiling tiles and the lighting and the furniture were all sort of destined for the dump, and so we got them at very low cost, which allowed us to put more money towards some of the higher cost items. It was also a matter of serving our ReThink Green members, because the green room is used a lot by environmental groups, and their comfort level with using a place which is built sustainably was very important to us and to our mission. So building them a place that really did a lot of damage and to the environment was not going to work for us or for them. So it was important. It was kind of a high priority for us to do.
In terms of the ergonomics from the common roof perspective, we have health and safety committees in each of our facilities that are composed of folks from different tenants and partners, and together they do the ergonomic assessments in terms of making sure we're accessible and have the right kind of desks and tables and chairs and all of that kind of accommodation requirements. And then that goes back to our funders, but we apply as a group. So we have much more leverage to get funding to help with some of that. So budgets are very tight, but the leverage and the power of a number of nonprofit organizations making a request has been beneficial for us.
Okay, thanks. And Julia has been asking just a quick word about how both organizations have been marketing yourselves. So maybe again we'll start off with Rebecca and then.
Okay. Well, it's really been a lot by word of mouth is really our primary marketing tool. As I mentioned also those workshops for the Regional Business Center and the Learning Initiative. We've had clients come in through both of those programs to work in the Forge, and then mostly we've had our current members tell other people that they know about that to come and work here. Yeah, that's primarily how we've done it. We've done obviously some postering and social media website stuff, but really word of mouth is our big generator of people. We've also done some events. For example, I'm speaking tomorrow at the Laurentian University is having a Green Innovation Symposium evening event. So we're going to talk about the Forge there, and just getting the word out among the right people who are thinking about starting a small business and are ecologically minded. Has really helped us to attract people.
That's somewhat similar, Rebecca, to kind of what we've done with the marketing, because it really has been word of mouth for the first period of time, and only recently we sort of intentionally decided to market ourselves in terms of website development and going out and putting proposals in and things like that. So it's kind of grown as we've matured a little bit.
Okay. Similar strategies, though. So maybe a quick question from Melissa around timeline. So maybe for each of you, so what was the timeline from idea to actually launching space? Just as other people are thinking maybe of trying to do something like this, what should they be thinking of in terms of timelines?
For our first Barrie Common roof, it was about 2.5 years from initial concept into actually purchasing, and then it was another 6 months for renovations. So that was about a 3-year timeline. For Orillia, it was much quicker. For our second common roof facility, that was about 14 months because we had the experience to catalyze the community to come together. So the first ones take a lot more time than subsequent launches.
And how would that work for have been true for the Forge?
So we, I'm sorry, distracting. Someone else is phoning. So for the Forge, we got our initial Trillium grant in March of 2012, and we did a soft launch in, it would have been January 2013. So just over a year of sort of planning and designing and renovating to get it just at the place where it's occupable, and the full launch was in April of 2013.
Okay, and one other quick question around maybe the biggest challenge that each of you have faced, and that'll be the last one, I think, because we do need to stop shortly.
Well, for us, really one of the most significant challenges, and this is nothing new, is capital for bricks and mortar. That is always very, very challenging to get those hard costs up front. Construction and renovation costs always run more than you think they will run. That's the nature of the beast, I think. And again, in Orillia, we were fortunate with some government grants, which helped us reduce the mortgage timelines for paying off the mortgages. But here in Barrie, it was really taking a risk, a measured risk. New Path Foundation, put $500,000 down on the offer to purchase, and that was risky. But often it's measured risk is the only real way to get things done. So it is a measured risk, and capital is really important, and it's critical to have that capital in place as much as possible.
Okay, that's important information to share there. And Rebecca, how about you with the Forge?
Well, other than the ones I've already mentioned about accessibility and private space and whatnot, the one other thing I think we are still working on is somewhat of the perception of what the Forge is and its function among our ReThink Green members. Because although we're trying to communicate and work this out, there's still a little bit of suspicion about anything that looks like a business that has to do with environmentalism. So trying to communicate that, like, what is the function of the Forge and the function of ReThink Green in relation to the Forge, that communications piece to our members and to the greater community is something we still are addressing.
That'll probably be something that builds as you move ahead.
Yeah, as it becomes more business-like. Like the Forge is a business, but ReThink Green is not. So just communicating the difference, like what is a social enterprise? Even that's that simple. It's not something that's necessarily known even in our own community. So right. Just to communicate how that structure works and the relationship between the two is something we're still working on.
Wonderful. Well, we really need to wrap up. We only have just a couple of minutes left. And so I do reference, this is about storytelling, and SEontario is about storytelling. So I do want to just invite you all to truly make SEontario.org your online community. And the stories of both the Forge and Common Roof are on there, as well as some other shared space. So do check those out and find out a little bit more still. And also, if you are actually running a social enterprise in Ontario, we'd love you to post and share your story and also fill in the survey to join the social enterprise directory that is going to be going live shortly. And we'd also love you to suggest any valued resources for our resource portion of the site. We also have the news item, or the question of the month if you have a question of the month, or if you want to contribute to the question of the month. And of course, you can also follow us on Twitter or subscribe to our YouTube channel. Find out all about SEontario and really, as I said, make it your community. I do want to also mention that next Tuesday will be the third and final webinar in the series. In this case, we're looking at local government and municipal support for social enterprise. And we have two exciting social enterprises, Fusion Youth and Screaming Avocado. So do join us again then, and we'll look forward to hearing from you. Just another quick promo as we leave. The Canadian Conference for Social Enterprise will be taking place in London, Ontario next April. And Matthew's about to put a link in the chat, but we will also email a link to that. The registration for that event just went live this week. And hopefully many of you have already heard about it, but if you don't, we'll make sure that you get that link. So thanks again to our webinar funder, the Ontario Trillium Foundation, to the Rural Social Enterprise Constellation and liaison partners, to my colleague Matthew, who's been holding things down in the technology area, and a huge thank you to both Glenn and Rebecca for sharing your inspiring stories about shared space. And a big thank you to all of you for participating. And please do take a moment. You should very momentarily be receiving the 1-minute survey that we emailed to you. And so we really appreciate your feedback. And in about a week, you should certainly be able to see the webinar recording, and so you can send a link to others at that time, or just listen again if there's anything that you felt you missed. So thank you so much, and we'll look forward to many of you joining us again